Roll on Fox. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Picks and Roll on Fox Sports, The Gambler, and iHeartRadio. Sam Oshtry here alongside Sean Barnard. Sean, we have the best two words in sports coming up this weekend. Game 7, Nuggets Thunder. We got the Knicks Celtics Game 6 tonight to get to a lot of other storylines. It's been a wild, wild week in the NBA for a ton of different reasons. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sam Oshtry, and you're absolutely right. A Game 7 and a series that has lived up to every bit of the hype there. So I think I kind of forgot about what a high-intensity stretch of the season this is. With the NBA has not been on the back burner, but the Sixers kind of messing up my timeline for what to expect here. So I've been loving.
Well, they would have been out by now anyway. Like this is past their expiration date. They would have been gone.
That's a great point. But yeah, I've been all in. That was a great game last night. Very excited for what's to come tonight with Knicks versus Celtics, and plenty more to get into with you.
Yeah, so Picks and Roll here on Fox Sports, The Gambler, and iHeartMedia, presented by TickPick, the best place to get tickets for any major event. If you're going to Knicks Celtics, want to go up to New York for Game 6. If you're going to be out west, not really out west, but in Oklahoma City, west from here, in Oklahoma City for Nuggets Thunder Game 7. Eagles schedule was just announced this week. If you want to cop any Eagles tickets, Eagles Dallas Cowboys opening night of the NFL season on Thursday Night Football. To kick off, the Cowboys have to watch the Eagles raise a banner. Any tickets you want for any major sporting event, TickPick is the place to go. It's the only app with no hidden fees. So score your tickets to any sporting event on tickpick.com now. All right, let's get into last night's game, Game 6. You could call it the Julian Strawther game because he was just phenomenal. I don't know where you want to start exactly, but I'll give you the floor is yours. Takeaways from last night's Nuggets Thunder Game 6.
Yeah, I guess I'll walk through like my biggest takeaways. For starters, I thought Jamal Murray really set the tone in that game. He was excellent in the start, and there was a lot made about his illness, him not being 100%, but he looked like the Jamal Murray that we know and love will come playoff time. At the start of that game, really asserted himself in that first quarter in the early minutes. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the foul issues were definitely a problem there, and picking up that fourth one right before halftime on a really frustrating and frankly dumb foul. I get it. It happens. We've all been there where you're frustrated, you get the ball stolen, and then you reach out of nowhere, but you can't be doing that on that type of stage. So that certainly shifted the script of that game, I felt. And of course, Nikola Jokic just going through, processing the game as well as we expect. And then you mentioned it, Julian Strawther. The Nuggets need somebody to step up outside of kind of the guys that you do know. And Michael Porter Jr. is still going through his struggles. Shot the ball a little bit better last night. He was on an 0 for 13 stretch before he finally broke out of it. So nice to get a little bit of help from the supporting cast. But they are going to need help from these random type role players, the X Factor type guys. And Strawther was that last night. So I thought the Nuggets showed a little bit of that championship pedigree. Nikola Jokic still shined as the best player on the floor. And it was an awesome game all around. I thought this series, it wouldn't have done it justice if it did not go to a Game 7. So I'm happy things went down as they did last night.
This always felt like it was going to a Game 7. And this series is so interesting because it's the classic, like the Thunder, this is their playoff scars and their playoff battles they need to go to. They are a young, up-and-coming group against the best player in the world. This is the best team in the league right now, the Thunder. Also one of the best teams historically, if you look at some of their win totals, their net ratings, all of that. Like in terms of just their statistics, they're one of the best teams of all time, you could say. They have to obviously win a championship to put the bow on that. But against one of the best players, also you could say of all time, but certainly one of the best players of the best player of the last half decade in Nikola Jokic. And so when you have this matchup against, they're not the defending champs, but this team won a championship 2 years ago. This core won a championship. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. That is a championship group against a team chasing that. So the storylines between these two groups have just been awesome. This is why it's been such a great series, and the basketball has been such a high level, the adjustments, all of it. But the story for me is it's not about Nikola Jokic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like those two guys have been good, not great, honestly. I think both of them have struggled at times. And part of that is because of the defensive coverages the other team's throwing at them. Like the Thunder are just crowding Jokic time and time again, throwing so much size at him, which we see he struggles a little bit. I mean, he had 2 40-plus point games, so we can't say he struggles. But relative for Jokic, he's had a couple duds in there. And then Shai, same thing. Like when they go zone, they're crowding his drives. And he struggled at times too, especially in the clutch earlier on this series. This series to me is not about them. Those two guys are going to show up in Game 7. It's about the role players. It's about the others. And both of them, which is so interesting in the series, is you have no idea which supporting cast is going to show up night in and night out. Like last night, the Nuggets their supporting cast was phenomenal. Jamal Murray's been great all series. Michael Porter Jr. had a decent game. He's really been struggling. Of course, Julian Julian Strawther. You had other guys. Christian Braun had 23. You had other guys step up. Whereas for the Thunder, other guys didn't. And in previous games, it had been Chet was playing well, and Chet played pretty well last night. Jalen Williams has been really bad the last 3 games.
Yeah.
But he had a 32 ball in game 3, I believe it was. Even in a loss, Lou Dort had some great moments. Like they're so deep and they had so many different guys step up, but they're also young and inexperienced where you don't know who's going to be there night in, night out. And that's been the story of the series. It's which of the help of the superstars, the MVP candidates, are going to show up. And that's the question going in game 7. And whichever supporting cast does is going to advance to the conference finals.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And the supporting cast conversation is interesting. Like we talk so much about stars in the NBA, and both these guys absolutely fit the bill, Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But I'm not sure that either of their co-stars fully do. Jamal Murray's been great and historically has been a riser in the playoffs. He has been a guy that has lived up to the level. But when you do look kind of below that, it is a whole bunch of question marks. You have zero idea what version of Russell Westbrook is showing up on a night-to-night basis. You have zero idea if Michael Porter Jr. is going to shoot 5 for 6 for 3 or 0 for 7 because he's done both in this series here. When looking at the Thunder here, looking long term, I still have my questions about Jalen Williams being fully the guy. He's been excellent. He's been far above what anything could have hoped for when drafting him out of Santa Clara there. But there is an inconsistency that's really frustrating. He was excellent in that game 3, as you mentioned. But outside of that, it's been really sporadic.
Let's talk about Jalen Williams for a second, because when we talked a few months ago, like we both said, what's the one thing that could hold the Thunder back? And it's the secondary scoring. It's the help. And that's been Jalen Williams, because we saw it against the Mavs.
Right.
They saw it against the Mavs last year in that series where he shot 42% from the field, and he was a big reason why they lost. This series, he's shooting 33% from the field, 21% from 3, and the last 3 games, he's 10 for 43. Like, it's just not good enough. He's still engaged defensively. He actually had a pretty good playmaking game last night. He had 10 assists, but that's just they need secondary scoring. And part of the reason why I didn't think it was going to be a problem this year, earlier this season, because they had so much depth and they're so deep where other guys can lift him up when he's not playing well. And that still might be the case where they have so much depth. And if he struggles in a game 7, it's enough to win. But do you have any confidence in Jalen Williams heading into a game 7?
I can still see a world where he pulls one out. Like, he's a good player. There's no doubt about it. And I still think, like, overall, but without being too harsh on him, he's been very good defensively. I thought he's impacted the game rebounding the ball. Like, he's still done a lot of good for this team. But I do kind of think he won't be the guy that when we're writing the story of this series a couple months or weeks down the line that we're speaking too highly of him. I got to also admit, Chet Holmgren has left me underwhelmed more than I'd like to say. I'm a huge Chet guy, and like defensively, I thought he's had some real flashes. His rim protection was great last night, but it feels to me like he's sacrificing in terms of like trying to be a good teammate in a way where they need you to be the guy, man. They need you to step up and generate some stuff offensively, and he really hasn't. There's been a couple like fake DHOs where he's attacked the basket hard, a couple 3-point looks that he's capitalized on, but I think there's more to Chet than he's really unveiled, and I think he kind of has to get over this like fitting into the system, playing team basketball, and just take over when the moment commands it.
Yeah, he doesn't punish small defenders as much as I would like him to. Obviously, he's skinny frame, but he has pretty good touch around the rim. So he's not punishing small defenders in the post as much as I would like him to. And his finishing has been a little questionable at times. Even he had 19 points yesterday, pretty good game. But there's a few finishes where it's like, these are just finishes you have to make. And it's oversized. Nikola Jokic, obviously, he's not some rim protecting shot blocker, but he's a big dude and he's hard to finish over. So that contributes to it. But yeah, I kind of agree that he's had good statistical outputs, but I've been a little underwhelmed with Chet. But look, the story is the bench and the depth, because let's go back to Julian Strawther for a second. He was pretty much out of this rotation. Like, Peyton Watson was playing more than him as the 7th man, and it really felt like it was a 6-man rotation with a little bit of Peyton Watson, and then Julian Strawther played sporadic minutes. But he played 20 minutes last night, by far the most that he's played this series. And there was a stretch early in the 4th quarter when the Nuggets went to a lineup with Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and Russell Westbrook. That was the first 3 or 4 minutes of the 4th quarter. I was just sitting there going, this is the time the Thunder have to capitalize and come back, because they were trailing at that point, and they didn't. The Nuggets extended their lead. And who was on the floor for the Thunder? It was Shai, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams, and Cason Wallace. It's a small lineup, and I would have probably gone big if I was the Thunder, but that's still a good lineup, and a lineup that you should be able to cut the lead and gain some momentum. The Nuggets won those minutes. Like, the whole thing, this whole series has been the Nuggets don't have a bench. They don't have depth.
Right.
They can't give Jokic any break. And Tim Legler said on the broadcast, where he was like, they just gave Jokic another 2-minute break. a guy where they haven't had a more than a day off in between games in over 2 weeks. And now he has this extended break to start the fourth quarter, comes back rested. The Thunder had to win those minutes, and they didn't. And so it's been the Thunder's bench and the Thunder's depth this whole series. And now the Nuggets in the game 6 somehow finally were able to pull it off because of their bench.
Yeah, and to kind of set the stage for Strother specifically, so he clocked last night officially 19 minutes and 31 seconds. Across the playoffs, his next highest has been 14-15, and we're talking about game logs of 4 minutes and 44 seconds, 9:53, 1:56, 10:52.
Out of the rotation.
Yeah, inactive for 4 of those games. And even going back to the regular season, he played 9 minutes and 52 seconds in the final game of the season, 11 minutes 17, 10:34, just 54 seconds, and then a straight inactive streak of looking like about 12 games there. So this was a guy that they basically just threw to the fire out of nowhere, and boy, did he step up. I've always liked Strother, thought he was a fun college player. I'm glad he got a chance there. I would kind of thought they would go with the Jalen Pickett direction last night. There was a little bit of conversation about that on the broadcast as well, and I thought that might have been a little bit of the story.
He hasn't played at all, though. Like, at least Strother's got sporadic minutes. Jalen Pickett hasn't played a second, I don't think.
True, but the second half of the season, they were relying on him somewhat heavily. Like, they kind of threw him a ton of those, and I mean, yeah,
that was Calvin Booth's direction, and there's a reason he's gone.
That's fair, but I mean, they pushed the right buttons last night, so I can't argue.
Do you think Michael Malone is watching these games, like like Julian Strother plays really well, a guy he didn't really trust? He's like, damn it, like what do you think he's like watching these games?
I think he's rooting for the Thunder straight up. I think he's saying, and I get part of that's probably hard because he has like such deep relationships with this guy. Like Nikola Jokic has been his dude for the whole duration of his career, so that might like overcome the feelings. But like Michael Malone, and I did have a chance to interview him and do his pregame press conference once. The dude's a gangster, man. The dude is like a no-nonsense, shoots you straight, like carries himself with some intimidation. I kind of take it as like that dude sits there and watches these games in spite of, I don't want this guy to do my job better than I can do it. I don't want David Adelman to look like it. Like I could have done exactly what he is doing with this team. I think that's probably what's going through his mind. Who knows? There might be like in his heart him rooting for these guys a little bit more. But my gut feeling is he probably watched these games in spite and roots for the Thunder.
And that's part of the problem with NBA coaching right now is that you need a guy who's more relaxed and more of a player's coach. Like a guy who's that intense for that much of a season, you're not really going to last. And you kind of saw him wear thin, and his voice in the locker room didn't have that much of an impact anymore. So when that wears thin, it's like, all right, this guy doesn't have the voice. He's useless to us. He's replaceable. Like a lot of these NBA head coaches are, or at least that's how the front office perceives them at this point. And he's gone. And David Edelman is getting a contract no matter what happens in game 7.
He's earned it.
He's earned to be the head coach of this team. But all right, let's talk about game 7 for a second. So the line opened up at 8.5 Thunder, which was an absurd line. Obviously got bet down immediately. It's sitting at 7.5 right now. Just an absurd line for, number one, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, no doubt. Number two, these series have been so close, and every single game in this series has been so close. Even the ones that kind of explode in the end, where you can look at the box score and you're like, all right, they won by 10 or 12 points. They were close up until the last 3 or 2 minutes, essentially. So that was an absurd line. A couple things about game 7 before we talk about it. First off, I don't want to hear anything about home team advantage. I've been saying this to you for months.
Sure.
Road teams have won 9 of the last 14 game 7s. There's no such thing as home court advantage. I know it's going to be electric in Oklahoma City, but there's no such thing as home court advantage in the NBA and the playoffs anymore. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't, because road teams have had so much success. This isn't college basketball where these guys get kind of frazzled by intense atmospheres. I mean, these are pros who have been doing it for a long time. Home court advantage is pretty much, it means nothing to me. So I know that's factored into the line a little bit, but that means nothing to me. The next thing that people are going to say is Jokic doesn't lose game 7s. Like Jokic, you have the best player on the floor, he's going to win game 7. I'd like to remind everyone what happened last year against the Wolves, where the Nuggets were actually at home and they had a 20-point lead in that game, and the Wolves come back in game 7 of the second round and lose that. And obviously the Nuggets lose that game, or sent home packet. So yeah, of course, Jokic won game 7 against the Clippers last round. But this idea that just because you have the best player on the floor and just because Jokic is that good that he can't lose a game 7, it's absurd. And so that doesn't follow any logic. So with all that, I'll set the stage for you. Forget the money line, who you have winning the game. What do you think about this line, and who would you lean one way or the other?
Yeah, I do think it's a crazy line here. And we've seen the numbers sit at that for a good portion of this series, the 8.5 to the 7.5, which has been insane to me. Like, I think this should be closer to we look at the Celtics and Knicks line tonight, which is like a 2.5 line. That feels more appropriate for this game 7 matchup to me. If from a pure betting perspective, I think you lay the Nuggets to cover the plus 7.5 there, that I do think this is a ball game, and that's a pretty good insurance policy there. I do think they have a legitimate chance of winning this game. And when you get that type of cushion, I'm willing to roll with that. So from a pure betting perspective, I do like the plus 7.5 there. With that being said, I do kind of feel like the Thunder take this game. I understand Nikola Jokic is the best player on the floor, but this has felt a bit like a war of attrition series to me. And we've seen the Julian Strothers step up. We've seen this team be able to elevate around Jokic to an extent, but it's tough to do it this many times in a row. The crowd will be kicking, and I know you don't care about that to the fullest extent, but I do think it matters when you're running in these just lines of different players, the Lou Dorts, the Cason Wallaces, the Isaiah Joes, the guys that can step up at home here. I think the Thunder, it's going to be a bit too much talent that they're able to outlast this Nuggets team. I do think it's going to be a battle. I do think it's going to be a great game. I am all over the plus 7.5. I think that's the way to bet it, but I do think the Thunder end up getting their postseason scars and finding a way to advance in this one.
I realize I'm kind of going to be a hypocrite when we talk about the Knicks Celtics series, because I definitely will mention the crowd at MSG, what it's going to be tonight. But still, it's the Celtics have a lot of success at MSG and on the road in general. But in terms of this game, I think you're right, where I trust the Thunder's others more than I do the Nuggets. Right. And we've seen games where Julian Strawther can step up. We've seen games Aaron Gordon plays really well. Jamal Murray's been awesome all series. I just think the Thunder have so much depth where if it's Jalen Williams, he has to play well. There's more pressure on him in this game, this game 7, than anyone else on the floor. But if he's not, they have other options to go to, whether it's Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Lou Dort, all these different options. Their double big lineup with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. Jalen Williams the second. They're big. Great. He's been playing a ton, and he's been playing really well. He's earning himself some money.
I might argue he's been the best defender of Jokic that the Thunder have had in this series.
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Hartenstein's been playing pretty well. Even if Jokic is getting his, he's making it difficult. Like, it's not easy. I do think you're right in stretches, though. He's been way better than Chet. I mean, Jokic bullies Chet every time he sees that matchup. But they're just throwing so much size at him. And whether it's Jalen Williams or Chet, those guys are kind of like lurking and floating around. So he's never really in like single coverage Jokic. Right. I will say look at who the Nuggets go up and down that roster and who you trust beyond Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. has been really bad this series. And I know it's the shoulder thing. Like, I get it. That's an excuse, but he's still out there playing and he's been really bad. And you also look at a big reason why the Nuggets lost to the Wolves in last year's second round. A lot of it was because Michael Porter Jr. and the secondary scoring that he couldn't provide. He's really struggled in that series. Russell Westbrook has been awful the last 3 games.
Barely hitting the rim.
Yeah, seriously. You're getting like, they're leaving him wide open on threes. And it's like, all right, just stay in the corner or cut every single time. But he's turning the ball over. He's trying to do too much. He thinks he's back in his like I guess when he's back in Oklahoma City, he thinks he's like the Oklahoma City Russ, and he's not at all. So he's just been doing way too much, and he's been bad. Again, I don't trust Christian Braun. He's had playoff experience. He's a national champion. He won a title the first year with the Nuggets where he actually contributed in that finals, even as a rookie. So he has experience. Again, I don't trust the role players like I do the Thunder. So I'm going to it's not about Jokic for shit. It's just not. I don't care about their 2 best players. And it'll be interesting to see when they actually hand out that MVP trophy. I know people are talking about that on the timeline right now. But I just don't trust the Nuggets role players and their secondary scoring like I do the Thunder. So with that, let me ask you a question, because there's always a role player that steps up in game 7. In game 7s, you saw it with Buddy Hield against the Rockets when he had 33 in that game 7. Lou Dort, actually, in his rookie season in a game 7 against the Rockets in 2020 in the bubble, he had a 30 ball. He was a rookie. And if you remember that series, Lou Dort couldn't shoot that season when he was a rookie. And they were leaving him open, essentially. And he had a 30 ball, was drilling threes. And that was kind of like, okay, Lou Dort has arrived, even though it was in the bubble. Is Lou Dort the guy that's going to, if you think the Thunder are going to win, who will be the role player or even a guy off the bench that will step up and be like, all right, this was X's game?
Yeah, you beat me to the punch here, because Lou Dort was going to be my guy. And that sort of was the case in game 5. We saw the same thing. And I know this is oversimplifying it to an extent, but so much of playoff basketball comes purely down to one coach deciding which guy they're leaving open and whether or not that guy hits shots. Lou Dort has quite clearly been the guy for the Thunder for stretches that Denver said, we'll roll the dice and live and die with how he shoots. And we've seen the ups and downs. We've seen the 2-for-9 games. We've seen the 0-for-7 games. But I think Lou Dort, with that home crowd, the dude with that battles the way he did, he can knock down enough. I mean, he hit 4 3-pointers in game 5, 3 of them like crucial in that third and fourth quarter there that were electric as far as the game goes. So I think Lou Dort is the guy that steps up once again. And like, I have more faith that he can step up and deliver than I do with the Denver options for that. And when you mentioned Russell Westbrook, we talked about this a little bit with Jonathan Kuminga, but I think they have a similar mentality that hurts them to an extent of like when they feel disrespected or, you know, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm taking on the world. And I think that's just like a downhill cycle. Russ, to his credit, has been pretty excellent for this Nuggets team throughout the duration of the series. He's slipping a little bit more and more into that mindset, I felt, as this series has progressed. And I do worry that that's going to hurt the Nuggets in game 7 too.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that strategy because that's exactly what the Thunder are doing successfully.
Yeah.
And you could say successfully or not, but they're executing that well where they're crowding Jokic on his touches. They're taking away Murray. And then they're even taking away Aaron Gordon. Like a lot of times what you see with the Nuggets be so successful in is you hit Nikola Jokic on the short roll and you have that little oop to Aaron Gordon. They're taking that away too. So they're taking Aaron Gordon away in the dunker, taking away Jokic, or not taking him away, but crowding him on his drives, making it difficult, and taking and really putting their defensive energy into Murray. And both those guys are playing well, but they're saying Michael Porter Jr. hit shots, beat us. Christian Braun hit shots, beat us. Russell Westbrook hit shots, beat us. And that's you might die by that strategy. And they're heading to a game 7. It's been rough a couple games this year. And if in game 7, if those guys, if Russell Westbrook hits 3 threes, the Nuggets are winning the basketball game.
Right.
But I think that's the strategy you have to live and die with. So I respect it. In terms of the role player stepping up, I agree that I think it could be Lou Dort for sure. I'm going to go Aaron Wiggins, actually, who hasn't had the best series, but he's had moments. I've loved watching him all year. Like you can say Casey Wallace, Alex Caruso obviously could have a huge game. I trust him more than most. Aaron Wiggins is so talented. I mean, he's a great shooter. He can create for himself. He can handle the ball. He can do it all. And he's really, I don't want to use the word underutilized because he's on such a great team. And so obviously he doesn't have a bigger role, doesn't have that much of a usage on the Thunder. When he goes to another team and he will get paid by another team, he will elevate his game tremendously. I'm not just saying that because he's a Maryland guy, but he's a really good player. And I could see a huge game from him where he hits 3 threes. They start having to close out harder on him. He can attack the rim. He's really athletic. He's a plus defender too. So I think we could be looking at Aaron Wiggins' game.
Yeah, and I think that's the story of a lot of these Thunder guys, and every NBA team should be monitoring the situation of which one of these guys shake loose because they're not going to be able to pay all these guys. But the case in Wallace's, I mean, Lou Dort, I think probably sticks around, but Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and by the way, I was texting with our good friend Mark Henry Jr. Do you think you can make a case that Aaron Wiggins is better than his brother?
Who's his brother?
Andrew Wiggins.
That's not his brother.
I think it is, isn't it? It's not.
No, I'm pretty sure it's not.
All right, well, I'll still throw the hypothetical out there. Is there a case that Aaron Wiggins could help a team win more than Andrew Wiggins?
Wait, can we get I'm pretty sure they're not brothers.
I even did a Google check, so I might be getting false news on Google's, but I thought that was the case there. I'll keep talking.
Maybe I'm wrong.
There we go. I thought it was.
Wow, I'm getting very conflicted things from Google right now. No, they're not. They're not brothers. They're not brothers.
Yeah, okay, I really thought it was. So, oh well.
Because I remember like obviously when he was at Maryland and I was covering in Maryland, I would like look at this because obviously Andrew Wiggins was in the league at that point, and I remember like no, it's not. They're not brothers. Yeah, but a couple Google. Yeah, but when you go, this is the problem with AI and Google.
Right.
When you search it says Aaron Wiggins' brother is Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, that was the first thing that popped up for me, so I read with it. So I probably should have dove a little bit deeper into the scroll there.
No, yeah, but then also a couple other sources are saying they are, but I'm almost 99%. I could be wrong, but I'm almost 99% sure they're not brothers. But to answer the question, yeah, honestly, yeah. It's funny when you think about Andrew Wiggins' career. Like he'll always have that one season where he was an all-star starter. I mean, he was an all-star starter in 2022 when the Warriors won the title. He was incredible. The Warriors don't win the title without him. But that's an anomaly of a season. So, yeah, I think Aaron Wiggins' potential, like right now, Andrew Wiggins is more experienced, like ready player. But Aaron, like I would, if those guys both were free agents and I was handing out a contract to one of them, who would I pay more money to and who would I rather want? Aaron Wiggins for sure. And his career could end up being, depending on the situation he goes to eventually, his career could end up being better than Andrew Wiggins.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm still, my brain's swirling over whether or not they're brothers. Or
yeah,
not.
This is like a huge mystery.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm second guessing myself. I'm almost positive they're not.
Somebody's gonna have to pull the 23andMe or whatever. Let's get some DNA testing and get the full answer for this. But
there's
yeah,
like all these there's all these these sites asking the question. It's like, why can't we just get an answer? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, maybe he can clear that up directly there. But yeah, the Thunder are absolutely loaded with these depth pieces there. Game 7, we're buckled up for it. And who knows, maybe we get another one in the Eastern Conference as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Great segue. Let's talk about it. Obviously, Knicks Celtics are going to a Game 6 at MSG. Line is 2.5 in favor of the Knicks. Early impressions, predictions, thoughts?
I got to say, I was very impressed by that Celtics win in the previous game there. And obviously, Jason Tatum is a great player, a guy that is the clear-cut best player on that Celtics team, one of the top 8 at worst players in the NBA. And frankly, I'd probably argue top 5, pretty solidified there, specifically for this season here. But I do think there was a little something to watching that Celtics team play, watching the way the ball moved, watching the off-ball cutting, that they looked like a different basketball team to me. Porzingis, still a factor. I can't believe, I don't think you can play him whatsoever. And frankly, I'm genuinely have concern for his overall health from a human being standpoint, that I would love an update from the Celtics on what specifically he's dealing with.
Can't breathe.
Yeah, Joe Mazzulla is saying he can't breathe post-game. What is going on with this guy? Because they haven't given any sort of information outside of a viral infection. But to just keep it about the Celtics here, I thought that was probably the best game that they played in this series. There was definitely a spirit behind them of playing for Tatum and, having a chip on the shoulder if we're not going down yet, doing it in our house in Boston there. I kind of think there's a world where this goes 7 as well. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear me land on that conclusion. But when I watched that game, I thought that was a different version of that Celtics team that we had not seen yet in this series.
Just to get a final hearing on the Aaron Wiggins, Andrew Wiggins conversation, they are absolutely not related. Okay. No question. Aaron Wiggins is from North Carolina. Andrew Wiggins is from Toronto, Canada. Absolutely not related.
All right. Google's got to clean that up.
Yes. I mean, Google's got to clean a lot up.
Sure.
So in terms of this series, of course I knew you were going to say it's going 7. I'm pretty confident the Knicks will win the series. I'm not that confident they're going to win tonight.
Yeah. That's fair.
Last game was essentially a game 1 for the Knicks in my mind. It was game 5, obviously, but it was a game 1 because this Celtics team is a new team without Tatum. And I'm not saying they're better or worse. Obviously, their talent is worse, but in a lot of ways, they look like a better team. And a lot of it was because how much they move the ball. They move the ball a ton and they play with such a faster pace. When Tatum brings the ball up the floor, a lot of times he's bringing it up slowly and they're taking a while to get into their actions, and it's taking a while to even get a shot up, and they go deep into the shot clock. This Celtics new team with Jaylen Brown really running the point for most of the game is they're playing so much faster and they're playing way less isolation. This team had 27 assists in game 5. That was the most they've had this series. The most passes they've had in the series came in their last game, game 5. Their isolations, direct isolations, were down. They only had 19 in game 5. This is a team that's moving the ball. They're not constantly just running pick and rolls to hunt matchups for Tatum, which is what they do. And then Tatum a lot of times makes play off of that, or he just runs a lot of isolation. This is a new team. This is just a new team with Jaylen Brown instead of Jason Tatum being the guy. And of course, Derek White has a bigger role. So I'm not convinced that this Celtics team is out of it. They could definitely win this series. I just think top to bottom, the Knicks are still the better team. And that was more of a game 1 to me, where it's all right, now you get to see what this team looks like, their play style, all this stuff. Now you make adjustments. Even if it takes 2 games for the Celtics to win, I still think those adjustments will come where the Knicks are going to close us out in 6 or 7. But I'm not too confident about tonight, to be honest.
If there is a criticism of the Celtics offense, it is that they get too hunt happy at times, that they are circling that matchup. And we've seen this around the NBA. That's becoming more popular when you have these heliocentric, the Luka Doncic, the James Harden, that's what they lean on. But they've gone to that, I think, too much for stretches. They just played real basketball from start to finish. Now, granted, it was helpful. Derek White hit 15 3-pointers in the first 3 minutes. It felt like that you got a little bit of pop from some other guys there. But I do think the Knicks have to adjust to that just as much as the Celtics do, that you have to guard this team differently because they're running different stuff. So I'm pretty optimistic that they can kind of run back the same thing that they did in game one, to kind of lean on guys to play this, like pick up the tempo in the same way they did. So I think we're buckled up for a great game tonight. And I also like that Jaylen Brown still played within himself. There was some concern to me that he would have launched like 35 shots and taken it upon himself to be the guy, to be the Jason Tatum. And he didn't. He played within the system. He played team basketball, and the whole team followed there. So I think the Celtics run back that same script. I do think we get the good version of Jaylen Brown. It just has to be for 2 more games, or at least 1 more game to extend the series. They're going to have to walk into the beast of Madison Square Garden to up the energy and all that thing. But I mean, the Celtics team, I think, took it a little bit personally that they were counted out once Tatum did go down.
Part of that, too, with Jaylen Brown playing within himself is you're right that he's at his best when he's doing that. He's not trying to do too much because obviously his handle isn't great. So he's obviously a good creator, but he's not some A+ level creator like a Tatum is. Part of that has the ability to do that is because Derek White was awesome and he shot the hell out of the ball, especially in that first half. What the Knicks need to do, an adjustment they need to make, is I want to see OG guard Derek White and just shut him down, take off his 3 balls. Like, OG has guarded Derek White less this series than Brunson, Bridges, and Josh Hart. And obviously, those numbers are skewed because Tatum was there for most of the time, and OG had to guard Tatum initially. But I want OG to guard Derek White now for the majority of this game, because when OG is guarding Derek White is 1 for 11 from the field. All 11 of those shots are 3-pointers. So that was as OG as his primary defender. He makes things really difficult for Derek White. And I think if you put Mikal Bridges on Jaylen Brown, that length can really bother Jaylen Brown. And instead of, like, he's obviously a strong dude, but when you put the length that Mikal Bridges has, that could bother him. So those are the matchups and adjustments I want to see. And it really starts with, if you shut down Derek White, you're going to force Jaylen Brown to play out of himself and try to do more than he's capable of. And that's when the Celtics offense might break down.
So a couple other points here, and from some matchup specific stuff. I think Derek White has Mikal Bridges figured out. I think he has him timed on from a defensive perspective. And what Bridges
you got to make that switch.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Like, what Bridges is so good at from like a scoring perspective is obviously he's super long. His release point is so high, and he prefers to shoot it in sort of a fadeaway motion there. That's so difficult to time from a defensive perspective. But when you play a guy over and over through the duration of a series here, you kind of figure out how it's done. And that's how I feel like Derek White has done there. Like when he also prefers to go into his jump shot from like a side to side motion. That's just Bridges' sort of preferred route there. I was really impressed with how Derek White was able to read that in the previous game. And I think that translates over. And also, as much as I'm praising the Celtics right now, the Knicks have to be absolutely maddened by some of that stuff in the previous game. Karl-Anthony Towns, man, the foul issues, and not a single one of them was a good foul. They were all atrociously stupid fouls. The moving screen, the just checking a guy coming down the lane. Like, it's one thing if a guy's in foul trouble because you're putting up legitimate rim resistance and protecting things. None of those fit those bill here. So you have to be absolute mad. And Jalen Brunson fallen into foul issues as well. I didn't think his was as egregious as like being dumb on the court, but still, obviously, that hurt them in a major way. And he fouled out super early in that game. So those things cannot be repeated whatsoever. And I'm not confident that Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't do the same exact thing.
How could you be? I thought we were past the Karl-Anthony Towns dumb fouls era of his career, and took a long time to get there. But he was improved last playoffs, and he had been better this playoffs. And then you just see these fouls 90 feet from the basket. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, use your head. And I think he's frustrated a little bit too because of his offensive role this playoffs. And, you know, he's had some good scoring outputs, but they've completely abandoned the Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns pick and pop. Like,
doesn't make any sense to me, by the way.
I don't get it. I really don't. Like, I don't understand the explanation. I haven't heard a good one from Thibs or anybody who would defend it of why they've completely abandoned it, because that was one of the most effective plays throughout the regular season. And that's a way, like, Karl-Anthony Towns isn't shooting a lot of threes this series. If he's at least getting them up, forget about making them. If he's at least getting them up, he'll be more engaged. And look, that's on him. He has to stay engaged no matter what. No matter what his offensive role is, but you have to stay more engaged, or he will stay more engaged if he's shooting a lot of threes. He'll start taking advantage of mismatches in the post that he sometimes generates. He'll drive more, which you saw against the Pistons. In this series, he hasn't drove the ball as well. He's not shooting threes at a high volume when he's a great 3-point shooter. You want him to. So it's really been weird that they've completely abandoned that. I will say too, like, this starting 5, which has played more minutes together than any starting 5 in the NBA, they're minus 7.3 net rating for the entire playoffs. Like, and lineups with Mitch, have outscored the Celtics. They played 110 minutes with Mitch on the floor. They've outscored the Celtics by 26 points. When Mitch is on the bench, they're outscored by 61 points in 103 minutes when he's on 135 minutes when he's on the bench. So this Knicks team, their identity has kind of changed in the playoffs, where they're not some offensive juggernaut anymore like they were during the regular season. They were the top 5 offense in the regular season. Now they've taken this more like offensive rebounding, defensive-minded approach, and they've taken on the identity of Mitch, which is interesting because it's a guy who comes off the bench, but they really have, like when he's in the game, they offensive rebound the ball really well, and they play defense at a higher level. And so he needs to have a huge impact this game. He needs to crash the offensive board, especially when Kristaps isn't really going to be a factor. Luke Cornett, we should talk about Luke Cornett because he was awesome. But I want Mitch to have a huge impact on this game 6.
Yeah, 6 for 6 at the free throw line, Mitch Robinson, by the way. Hitting the night celebration out there.
Yeah, actually tweeted after. He's like, that wasn't a night celebration.
Oh, well, I
think he posted on Snapchat. He's a big Snapchat dude for some
reason. He's an interesting social media follow.
He's an interesting person, period.
yeah, for sure there. But like that is an interesting storyline. I'll bring up the Luke Cornett story, man. For starters, like obviously, I don't think anyone could have predicted he played that well. 7 blocks was, I think, the second most in NBA history from any player off the bench there. And like you felt the direct impact of what he brought to that game there. But Luke Cornett has been a big part of the Celtics team all year, man. Like they've been pretty strategic, particularly over the second half of the season where it was pretty locked up that they were going to get the 2nd seed, of playing different lineup combinations that they will give Jason Tatum his night off, will give Jaylen Brown his night off. And in all these scenarios, Cornett has been a guy that's been called upon with an expanded role. It kind of surprised me it took this long in the series to go to that option there because he has been legitimately good. And the thing that I will praise him the most on, he's just going to play within his role. He's never going to do too much. He's never going to try and take guys off the dribble or play a reckless pass. He's just going to set screens, catch lobs, make the basic shots, defend. Like he just knows who he is as a basketball player in a way that I really respect. And I think the Celtics are going to need that kind of impact from him again tonight.
Yeah, and part of the Luke Cornett story has to do with Kristaps, which you brought up earlier. I don't really want to pile on because it's obviously something's going on mentally, physically, whatever it is. But he's just not a player that can be on a basketball court right now.
Yeah,
and whether it's breathing, whatever it is. So I don't think he should even play tonight. I wonder if they'll go to him or just completely abandon him. And when you have that Luke Cornett game and you trust him, it's obviously a completely different player. Like Luke Cornett plays within himself, like you just said. He's not shooting threes, but when they can have that optionality at center too, and you can kind of give Al Horford some more rest too, where he'll be able to defend at a high level in those crunch time minutes. He can make threes if he's not as tired late in the game because he's an old guy actually. So it's nice that you have that center option where it's like if Luke Cornett you didn't trust Luke Cornett like this, and you didn't have Kristaps playing because he's a negative when he's on the court as is at this point. Then the Celtics would be completely screwed because you can't play Al Horford that many minutes, and especially without Tatum, who did play center a lot of time for them, and was their leading rebounder. You would be screwed. But Luke Cornett is really what gives you a chance in this series now, especially because what the Knicks should get back to is crashing the offensive glass. They create extra possessions, put pressure on the rim, and that's tough because what the Celtics did so well last game was they got out and ran in transition, and they just played really fast, and the Knicks defensive transition defense struggled.
Yeah.
So it's hard to balance that when you're crashing the offensive glass and getting back in transition. But Mitch Robinson is such a force himself on the offensive glass, even just putting his hand on the ball, that he needs to get back to which he kind of got away from in game 6 or game 5, crashing the offensive glass, creating extra possessions, putting pressure at the rim on the Celtics bigs.
Yeah, I'm with you on Porzingis. Like, I think the game plan should be he doesn't play at all tonight. You can keep him active, you can keep him on the bench, and who knows, maybe he's miraculously feeling better. This isn't doubting him as a basketball player in his entirety. It's him in the short term, the version of him that exists right now. Just can't help this team win. It wouldn't shock me if they dust off the Myers Kita minutes and give him a chance in this. I don't mind that as sort of a just matchup with Mitchell Robinson. I do think they got to get a little creative. That this series has turned on its head, not only because you went down 3-1, but because you lost your best player. So everything should be on the table, and that wouldn't shock me if they go that direction there. And to the other point about that, when we mentioned Karl Anthony Towns, they also have completely stopped playing through him out of the post, which blows my mind with all the context of the stuff we're talking about. There isn't a single guy on this Celtics roster that can guard him one-on-one in those situations. He was cooking Al Horford when that was the matchup, and that was the best option for this Celtics team. Jason Tatum can't stop him in those spots. Jaylen Brown can't. Luke Cornett, I don't believe, can, even though he did look like Dikembe Mutombo for a stretch in that previous game there. So I don't understand why the Knicks don't lean on that more either.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But at the same time, it's like we're putting a lot of blame on Karl-Anthony Towns. The Knicks others have to step up too. Like we know what Brunson's going to be, and Brunson didn't play a good game by any stretching at 5 fouls in the third quarter, which is just like a ridiculous whistle. I mean, that was a series extender whistle where it's like we want this series to keep going.
They were dumb fouls too, though. Like he can't put
a couple of them. I would say 3 were legitimate, but it's again same thing with Shea, and that fourth foul on Shea was at the end of the second quarter was just done by him. But like we're not here to see the whistle. Like, let these best players have a little more leeway when they're getting in foul trouble. 5 fouls in a quarter is just absurd. I don't even care if you're a hack. Like, you should not be calling 5 fouls on one guy, especially the best player on one team, in one quarter. In 9 minutes, not even a full quarter. In 9 minutes, you got called with 5 fouls. That's absurd. And that's on the referees more than is Brunson, even if a couple of those fouls were pretty dumb. I will say it's on the Knicks others to me, because Mikal Bridges, like, he's had some great moments late in the fourth quarters, at the end of games, defensively, hit some big shots. He's not playing well. Like, he's shooting 39% from the field. He's shooting 25% from 3, averaging 13 points. He hasn't shot a single free throw in this series. Wow. Can you believe that? Not a single free throw in an entire series through 5 games. A guy who is at his best when he's getting downhill. And of course, he's usually looking for that midi pull-up. And he's been more of a spot-up player with Brunson on the floor. But still, like, you have to attack the rim. You have to get to the free throw line. OG had some great games early in the series when they were up 2-0. He struggled the last few games. He's not making shots. Like, the Knicks others just have to hit shots and have to hit threes. Like, I think Josh Hart had 4 or 5 threes last game, and that was wasted because you're not going to see that again. Like, it's really going to come down to, we know what Brunson's going to be, and we know what he's going to do in the fourth quarter in a tight game. It's what is OG going to do offensively? What is Mikal Bridges going to do offensively?
Yeah, I don't understand how Josh Hart does this every single playoffs, man, that he just finds a way. And obviously he's wide open, like they're giving him, and he's making him pay here. And he will have Madison Square Garden behind him tonight. But it blows my mind how he manages to just turn himself into a good shooter come playoff time.
Well, there's 82 game players and the 16 game players. And he's definitely an 82 game player because he led the league in minutes this year, got the minutes award. But he's also a 16-game player. Like, when you're drafting 16-game role players, who do you want in your squad? Even though teams leave him open a lot of times because he is a liability as a shooter, he'll have games where he knocks him down, and he does every little thing right. So he's a guy you want on your team for 16 games.
So am I reading between the lines here, Sam Oshtry, that you think this series is going 7 as well?
Like, no. I'm gonna say the Knicks are gonna win tonight, but I'm saying it wouldn't shock me if it does. Like, I wouldn't be shocked.
How much do you think the level of concern in that building, in that locker room, and in New York City happens if they lose tonight?
Oh, huge concern. Right now, all of the pressure is on the Knicks, especially at home tonight. But even if they lose tonight, heading into a game 7, the Celtics, this is a team that the Knicks are massive favorites once Tatum went down. They had a 2-0 lead with Tatum. You have a 3-1 lead when Tatum goes down. We're talking about a top 5 player in the league, a guy who's made 4 straight first-team All-NBAs. And this is your prime opportunity to get a trip to the conference finals. And when you look at who's in the conference finals, which they might have already done prematurely, you're looking at a team that is more than beatable in the Pacers, and a team that knocked you out in 7 games last year in the second round. That's a team you want to match up, and you're tasting a trip to the NBA Finals, and it's just human nature to do that. So all of the pressure is on the Knicks tonight and in this series. So because of that, they're going to play a little tighter. They're going to be at home. That crowd's going to be great, but it's going to be a nervous crowd too, to a degree. And the Celtics are playing like they have nothing to lose because they don't. They don't at this point. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty if they're heading back to 7 in Boston. I'm confident the Knicks are going to win this series, and I'm predicting them to win tonight, but I'm not too confident.
I think we go 7 here, and I feel pretty.
You think the Celtics are winning in 7, right?
I mean, I don't know how you could talk yourself to the Knicks winning Game 7 if they go and lose these back-to-back games without Jason Tatum here. And
they won 2 on the road to start this series. In Boston. I mean, and again, I think home court advantage means nothing. So
fair. The other part that I think we should keep in mind here is I agree the Celtics have nothing to lose. They do have plenty to gain, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes in Boston right now. About the big picture of this franchise. That yes, they just won a championship last year, but there are a lot of money decisions that need to be made this offseason. I think this team genuinely likes playing with each other. And if you're going to have like at least the case to keep the core together, you got to find a way to keep winning, man. And I think beating this Knicks team without Tatum would go a long way in the confidence from the new owner and the organization as a whole to why there is reason to doing it. Tatum getting injured sort of made the decision for the franchise of like there has to be big changes. And frankly, those conversations were already going down before the injury to occur. I think it was likely to happen either way. But if you're trying to make this case, if you're Derek White and Drew Holiday and trying to be, I want to be in Boston forever, show exactly why in this game and in the remainder of this series.
I think the Celtics' demise has been greatly exaggerated since Tatum's injury. I mean, you think this is like World War III in the NBA going on right now, based off what they're saying and what everyone's saying. And I get the salary cap situation. I mean, they're going to owe like almost $500 million. It's an absurd payroll. They're in the tax. Like, there's going to be changes. Next year is probably a wash. I think the Celtics could be competitive, like a 6 seed, 5 seed maybe, with a Jaylen Brown, Derek White led team.
Payton Pritchard.
Yeah, exactly. If they don't shop them, they're not gonna be a bad team by any stretch. They're certainly not gonna win the finals without Tatum next year. And who knows? He could come back for the playoffs or probably take the KD approach where it's like, all right, take a full year off. You don't want to come back in like April and re-injure something. Take the full year off. But the demise is being greatly exaggerated because on the other side of next year, they're gonna have Jason Tatum still, who I think, like modern medicine, Achilles injuries aren't what they used to be. You can come back for them. When people compare him to Kobe injured his Achilles in his 16th season. He was already very much on the decline. Tatum's in his prime. Kevin Durant, you could even say, was on the decline when he tore his Achilles, and he came back 95 to 100% of what he was. Like, Achilles injuries are you can come back from Achilles injuries more than you used to be able to. So I don't want to hear those comparisons from 15, 20 years ago.
And by the way, if there's a single guy that I'm betting on to like take his rehab completely serious, to grind it out at his age, it's probably Jason Tatum. And I apologize for the stray, but this isn't Joel Embiid we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can call Tatum corny, no aura, no personality. All that might be fair, but he's as a hard worker that exists in the NBA. Yeah. So there's no doubt that he'll come back. He'll come back better than what he maybe was, because he's still in his prime. So it's that factor. It's the factor that they're not trading Jaylen Brown. Like, let's think about this front office. This front office was incredibly patient working with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and everyone wanted one of those guys to split up after all of their exits throughout the postseason. And this front office, Danny Ainge and then Brad Stevens, were not going to split them up. They were staying patient with that duo, and it paid off when they won a championship last year when they surrounded them with the right parts. They're staying patient with this. Those two guys are Celtics, I don't want to say for life, but for as long as you could go in an NBA career. Those two guys are staying Celtics. Derek White is going to be untouchable. This team is going to be fine. Yes, they might have to ship Drew Holiday out, and it's going to be a hard contract because he's old and he's 3 years left on that deal. And it's like over $100 million. So it's going to be a hard contract to ship out.
Porzingis is gone.
What'd you say?
Porzingis is gone.
Yeah, like Porzingis is gone, or Al Horford's gone. But this is a great front office. They are going to retool. And when you have the core still around of Tatum, of Jaylen Brown, and of Derek White, they'll be back in 2 years. Like, this demise, like, this is the most catastrophic injury in NBA history. Yeah, maybe for the individual player based on where he is in his career, the Celtics will be back and they'll be fine. Yes, it's a wash next year for their season, but this core isn't going anywhere, and they'll build around the margins because they have a great front office.
Yeah, I don't think it's over as far as this era or anything, but I do think that the next time we're talking about the Celtics legitimate title contenders, they look quite different than they do now. That I do think there's Al Horford, whether he retires or moves to another location, will not be back in Boston next year. I don't see a world where Porzingis is back. I do think it's more likely than not that Drew Holiday is traded, but these are all difficult things to maneuver, because when factoring in the trades here, you got to take in money to send money out in the NBA, the way things work here. So it's not like you can just straight salary dump. So there's going to be some tough decisions there. But I did want to kind of throw that on the table of, like, if this team wants to make the case why they shouldn't be retooling, that they do want to make the case of maybe Jason Tatum can just return next year. I mean, we saw him get the surgery at a quicker rate than I've ever seen in history of any player, really, him doing that there. So if you want to make this campaign and make this case, the floor is there for you to go and make that happen there. So I thought I would throw that out there too.
Yeah, it was good fortune he was in New York, because he was probably going to get that surgery in New York with that surgeon regardless. And he just happened to be in New York anyway. So yeah, I'm with you though. There's no reason to blow this up. And the Celtics front office is too smart. They're not trading Jaylen Brown this offseason. It's not happening. And he proved what he can do and the style of play that they can they can implement with him running the point and him being the focal point of the offense when he doesn't try to do too much. They proved that last game. So regardless of what happens the rest of this series, I think the Celtics are not blowing it up, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Derek White and that core will be back. So you have Celtics winning tonight, and you have Celtics winning in 7. I have Knicks winning tonight. But I mean, when the series is over, the Knicks are going to win tonight, and it's going to be a 4-2 series, and you're still going to say Celtics in 7, and then you're going to say Pacers in 4 next series.
Celtics 9-2 without Jason Tatum this year. I'll just throw that out there.
No, it's been impressive, but the Knicks are the better team to me. They have the best player on the floor, regardless of what Charles Barkley says, and I think the Knicks wrap it up at home tonight. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some teams that already advanced to the conference finals and some of those series, which were marred by injuries, which is really unfortunate to see, like how injuries play a role in these playoffs. The season's too long. It's a pointless conversation. I know a lot of people have it, but it's a pointless conversation because it's never changing.
Right.
Like how much money you make off of an 82-game season, owners will never relinquish that type of revenue and go to 70 games. So yeah, everyone acknowledges, I'm sure the NBA acknowledges, that is the solution. That's a better thing to do. From a business perspective, it's never happening. So it's really moot conversation, and then there's no point in even having it. But it sucks that Steph Curry goes down. That series becomes a wash. Of course, the Wolves win 4 straight and wrap that up. And then the Pacers, who deserve a lot of praise, but they also are a team that played a decimated Cavs team. Like Donovan Mitchell at the end of that series was hurt. Darius Garland was hurt the entire series and missed the first 2 games. Game 2, which the Cavs should have won, there was no excuse for them to blow that, but they were still down 3 starters. So the Pacers did snatch it from them, but at the same time, the Cavs were decimated. So I want to talk about where those 2 teams go, the Cavs and Warriors, but do you want to heap any praise on the Wolves or Pacers?
I think the Pacers deserve some more praise than what you're giving.
I was going to go the Wolves, so good thing you went the Pacers.
I mean, the team, I've made my position clear on that you got to beat whoever's in front of you, and I think that's just how sports work. They're like, you don't control those circumstances there.
Well, let me just say something.
Okay.
What did you text me when Jason Tatum went down?
That I now have my spin zone for the series.
Exactly. So now you have your spin zone, and that's what I was waiting for this. I was waiting for this. I knew it was coming. But now you have your spin zone that Jason Tatum's down. The Knicks beat a decimated Celtics team without their best player. But then you want to give the Pacers all the credit in the world that you have to beat who's in front of you.
Well, I mean, at the time of Jason Tatum's injury, it was a 2-1 series. You never know what happened.
9-point game with 3 minutes.
Okay, anything could have happened at that point. So, but to bring it back to the Pacers here, this team just keeps doing it, man. They're physical. They know exactly who they are. And I think what we've got a little bit lost in the NBA conversation, so superstar driven. And so who's the best player? And I'm certainly guilty of this myself. Even if Tyrese Halliburton wins an NBA championship, I still don't think I'm throwing him in the conversation of like one of the 10 best players in the league because I don't think he is. But this team sort of doesn't need him to be. That they generate looks from a pure offense and a pure basketball perspective in a way that has become a bit of a lost art in the NBA, or a lost art in the NBA there. They defend, they're physical, they get out in transition. They're a tough team to go up against on an every night basis. And frankly, I think even if that Cavs team was at full strength, I still think the Pacers were moving on in that series there. So they've gotten a lot of doubt. They haven't gotten enough love. I do want to give a little bit to the Pacers for taking care of business and making things happen.
Yeah, I want to talk about that point about the depth, because a lot of times you see like there's this notion that rotations are shortened in the playoffs and like the only top 7 is all that matters. But that's not really been true anymore. Like when you maybe
Denver,
it is ends up being for the Nuggets and the top 7 is all that matters. But when you look at the Thunder, if they win this series in 7 games, it's because of their depth. When you look at the Pacers, it's because of their depth. It's because of they have lineups that can go 2 through 10. So if it isn't one guy's night, it's another guy's night. And that's what makes the Pacers this special, is because they have so much depth and so many different guys. Like Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Naismith. Like those guys are. You talk about the Knicks. I know you joke the Knicks are like a role player super team. The Pacers really are a role player super team. Like those 2 guys, when you're drafting just role players, guys who will never ever make All-Star games, never have a chance. I don't know how it's subjective, but guys who never have a chance of making All-Star teams. Aaron Naismith and Andrew Nembhard are 2 guys, and even Benedict Mathurin are 3 guys that you want at the top of that role player draft. Yeah. So they're so deep and have so many different options, and that's what's been so impressive.
Yeah, I love all those guys. By the way, Naismith, what a sick career arc. Like him coming out, I'm pretty sure he was a Vanderbilt guy. Coming out of college, he just was a straight up 3-point shooter that he shot like, I want to say close to 50% from 3, absolutely launched it. And he's basically turned himself into this like high level defender, grunt work, physical guy. And it's pretty cool to kind of see that type of arc as the Thunder is booming around me in this household here. But like very cool to see him reinvent himself and be really effective in that role there. And yeah, all these guys know exactly who they are as basketball players, play within their box, and like it's translating to team success there. So I do think the Pacers deserve their flowers. And I know you wanted to bring up the Timberwolves. I'm in agreement with you that they haven't got quite as much love as well. So I'll let you take the floor and lead with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, they played a Warriors team without Steph Curry. What are you going to do? And people are blaming Jimmy Butler way too much. People are just piling on him. Jimmy Butler wasn't traded there to be the best player. He wasn't traded there to win games without Steph Curry. He's traded there to give relief for Steph Curry when he's on the floor with him. And he's traded there when Steph Curry has to sit on the bench. He can provide a spark in terms of the scoring and a secondary creator. That's what he was traded there for, not to be the best player on a team, because he's not capable of doing that and carrying a team anymore, especially a team as offensively challenged as the Warriors, where some other guys didn't step up. So
more offensively challenged than the Miami team, by the way.
Way more, right?
Yeah.
Like that team and Max Strus and Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent was awesome for that stretch. Like, those guys had the right personnel around Jimmy and those shooters. So Jimmy's getting way too much criticism right now. It's just a Warriors team that had no chance. Like, they would have lost to the Rockets. They would have lost to any playoff team, probably, including in the East, maybe even the Magic too, without Steph Curry, because he's everything. And we don't need to talk about his gravity and everything. Like, we know what Steph Curry is. So I get why the Wolves aren't getting as much credit. I want to talk about Julius. Like, Ant's awesome. Yeah. I want to talk about Julius Randle, who just averaged 25 points per game in a series. And you can talk about the Warriors being decimated. That's still a great defense. That Warriors defense is great. And the Wolves half-court offense struggled. They struggled in the first series against the Lakers, even though they won that in 5, and they struggled against the Warriors because the Warriors are a great defense. Julius Randle was the one who was creating in the half court, especially when they were throwing everything at Ant. He has become such a great playmaker, passing out of 4-on-3s and creating for his guys. He averaged 7.4 assists in this series, 6.6 rebounds. He had a phenomenal series. And the Julius Randle playoff criticism was completely overblown and really taken out of context, because his first playoff series ever with the Knicks he was the best player on the floor for a Knicks team that completely overachieved. No Knicks team
because of him.
100%. He was all NBA that year. But when Julius Randle's the best player on the floor, you're really like, your ceiling is only so high. So that wasn't his fault. That's not what he's meant to be. And then the next Knicks playoff run that he played in, he was really hurt. He was visibly hurt, and he was playing through something that entire run. So I get it that people were piling on him as, he's an underperformer in the playoffs. It lacked complete context, and he's been awesome this playoff. So he deserves all the credit in the world. And I love that the narrative's finally changed on him, because I've been critical of him. I think Julius Randle is a great player. He's a great basketball player. I've always questioned kind of his fit in the modern NBA, because he's a ball stopper. He's an isolation heavy guy who's a physical, likes to play through the mid post, back to the basket. His game, and he can make threes, but he's not some like knockdown 3-point shooter. And so that creates spacing concerns. And you saw that in the first half of the season for the Wolves. But he's found a way to fit in and adjust to his play style this season, really over the last half of the season. And the Wolves have been great because of it. So I've been really impressed with Julius Randle, how he's fit in, and he deserves all the praise.
Yeah, I've always had a great deal of respect for Julius Randle. I've liked him dating back to his days at Kentucky, and he's had a really bizarre sort of career, the way that he's bounced around from the Lakers to the Pelicans. I think he spent a year down in New Orleans. And then New York, I don't think he gets enough credit for really like starting this era of winning basketball
100%.
For the Knicks. And like, it always left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, the way that like the Karl Anthony Towns trade went down, as a way that I felt like he kind of went underappreciated in that. And I think it's really cool that he's now having his moment. And when speaking about like the fit on this Timberwolves team, you're absolutely right to question like the fit in the modern NBA, that he is a throwback style of player. There's no doubt about that. Post-oriented, a really good playmaker out of that. But what I think is so important to what he brings to this Timberwolves team, there's going to be doubles and triples thrown at Anthony Edwards constantly. That's who he's elevated to as a player, and the respect that he commands there. So to counter that, you have to have a guy who can generate his own offense, which Julius Randle can do. When looking at Karl Anthony Towns, while he's a more talented offensive player, he isn't really as a creator, a guy that can get to his own shots. He's a better spot-up shooter. He's a better post player. But just a guy that when it's late in the shot clock can go get to his spot and get a bucket. Julius Randle's far better than him, and we're seeing how important that is. Those situations have come up time and time again in this series as teams blitz Ant to get the ball out of his hands and force other guys to make them. So it's been pretty cool. I think even the most optimistic or biggest Julius Randle believers couldn't have guessed like this level of impact. He's tripled his PER from past playoff runs on just like how good that he's been. So I'm happy that he's having his moment. I do think this is kind of here to stay, and we may be looking at one of like the biggest win-win trades that ever occurred in NBA history.
That's what I was about to say, is that this is a complete win-win. Both guys, and imagine they meet in the finals, and it's just like this is an absolute win-win for both sides. And I think the Wolves have a decent chance of making the finals if it's the Nuggets. We've seen the Wolves' size really bother Jokic and the Nuggets in the past, really last like few seasons, honestly, since they got Rudy Gobert and created that team to defeat Jokic and the Nuggets, and they had success over it against them last year in the second round. If it's the Thunder, I feel like if the Thunder win Game 7, the Thunder are winning the championship. There's no doubt in my mind of that. That would mean that they kind of all those demons, those playoff demons, they would have exercised them all, and they would have gotten over the NBA champion. And it feels like that Thunder team will win the championship if they can escape that Game 7. And they also have the size to match the Wolves' size, and of course the perimeter defenders and all that. So I could see Julius honestly struggling in that series if it's the Thunder. But the Wolves have a decent chance of going to the championship if it's the Nuggets. I don't even know who would be favored in that series necessarily. Maybe the Nuggets slightly, but that would be an awesome, awesome series.
Yeah, no, 100% there. And it will be fun we'll see what happens here. We'll wait till the Game 7, because I truly think that is like a toss-up for how things play out. And I can talk myself either way. The other team that I did want to make sure we got to is the Cleveland Cavaliers here.
I was going to say, well, let me present this as a question to you. So the Wolves and Cavs are both done. Like, obviously, if seasons are over, which team, and there's different questions about where they go from here. We can talk about that. Which team would you be more confident in competing for a title next season?
I think the Cavaliers window, it's time for them to get creative this offseason.
Oh, really? You think the Cavs should blow it up?
Yes, to an extent.
Wow,
yes.
I completely disagree. I want to hear your case.
So here's my thing. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is remotely the problem. I do believe in him. I don't think Evan Mobley is remotely the problem, but he elevated his game in a way that I think was necessary and changed the way that I look at him this year. That's about where my list stops. That Darius Garland, a very good basketball player, but I don't know if he can coexist in a backcourt with Donovan Mitchell. Jared Allen, I even lower on than I thought could be the case. Another good player, but I think when looking at how this all works, it's time for them to take a superstar swing. Let's get in the mix. Let's give Donovan Mitchell a chance to have a true running mate here. And I do think Mobley can be sort of that third guy as a defensive first piece, but I don't think they could go, as Donovan Mitchell directly said in his press conference, they could go 82-0 in the regular season next year, and nobody's still going to look at them seriously. I think that they fell a little bit into that very good regular season team that doesn't have a chance in a playoff sort of box there. And I think you got to look yourself in the mirror, figure out how to fix that, and find the guy that can change that sort of perception.
I think patience is rewarded in the NBA, and I think they should stay patient. And part of the reason why is because there is a really nice runway in the East to make a championship over the next couple of years. You can assume Boston's out of it next year. You can assume Giannis is probably heading out west next season. You have the Knicks, you have the Sixers, and you have the Cavs. Maybe you want to throw the Pacers in. I will never be that worried about the Pacers, but I don't care. I don't care how far they go this year. The Sixers, of course, the health thing. You can never trust the Sixers. You really have the Knicks and the Cavs competing for a title next season.
You're disrespecting the Pacers heavy, by the way.
I know I am. I am very aware. But there's something about it. It's just I can't see that team. Maybe they'll make the finals this year. They're not winning a championship. The Cavs are the better team, no doubt, in my mind. The problem with the Cavs is they have this small backcourt, and I think the Sixers are about to experience that too, where small backcourts are tough when teams are just targeting those guys constantly in the playoffs. Like the Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are small backcourt, and the Sixers could have that problem with Maxey and McCain too. They have obviously great rim protection with Evan Mobley, who can really switch on the perimeter and guard 1 through 5. And of course, Jared Allen is one of the best rim protectors in the league. DeAndre Hunter is a pretty good perimeter defender. Max Strus is not. Ty Jerome is not. Perimeter defense is what they have to address badly. And they need perimeter defenders to mask Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell's liabilities defensively. The part of the problem this series was that Darius Garland was also not good offensively when he played. I mean, he missed the first 2 games, but if you're good enough offensively, it's fine if you're a negative defensively. He wasn't even good offensively because of his injury, and he really struggled throughout the entire series on both ends. So I think if they get perimeter-oriented defenders and better wing defenders who can also guard point guards, then they'll be fine, and they still can have that core and that rim protecting duo of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. What we saw most of the season, which what they had success with, was they were pairing those guys. Like it was usually Darius Garland, Jared Allen playing together, and then Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell playing together. And when those two guys, when with each duo was together, they were awesome. In the playoffs, that wasn't really the case because number one, you're playing your starters more minutes regardless, but also Darius Garland was hurt, so you didn't have that ability to play that duo because he didn't play the first 2 games, and then it wasn't the Darius Garland that we know in the rest of the series. So I still think patience is the way. You had a great regular season. You were one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. You just didn't make threes this playoffs. You certainly didn't make threes this postseason. Donovan Mitchell, you can trust in the postseason. I know people are piling on him because he hasn't made a conference finals, but he's had some epic playoff series where it hasn't been his fault. It's been his team's fault constantly. So I'm a huge Donovan Mitchell fan still. I think you can win with that backcourt and that front court. You just have to get enough perimeter defenders, enough 3-point shooting around them. Because again, this was the best offense in the league. So let's not discount what they did in the regular season. This was the best offense in the league during the regular season. So I think that the answer is patience. Yes, you have to build around the margins for sure, but I wouldn't blow up that court for it.
Jared Allen in the final 2 games of this series here, the final 2 games combined for 11 points and 6 rebounds here. That's just not good enough.
He was bad.
I thought he was straight up outplayed by like Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. And Miles Turner, who I think is a little bit underappreciated in the conversation, should not be outplaying you if you're Jared Allen. Like that just should not happen here. I agree with a lot of your points about shifting towards like a higher level perimeter, like perimeter defender and that kind of thing. I think the route to doing that is by moving on from Jared Allen and like swapping it that way. Like he's a good player. I don't think he's a difference maker from a playoff perspective. I think he's sort of closer to a guy than like the real all-star type center that like they kind of need, that Evan Mobley I think is capable of growing into. And by the way, the biggest loser of this entire postseason might be Ty Jerome, man. Like legitimately probably cost himself like $25 million just from that playoff run.
Yeah, well, if a 6th man of the year for a reason, that man has to stay as a 6th man in a limited role because he's awesome in a limited role, or a contender for 6th man of the year, whatever. He's awesome in a limited role. When he starts having to do too much, which he did with Darius Garland's injury this series, he's not the guy. The problem with trading Jared Allen for perimeter defenders is Evan Mobley is best at the 4. We saw that offensively. When he's playing the 4, when he's running that pick and roll in the short roll, he became an awesome short roll playmaker. His drives were way up, and he was way more efficient, and his points per possession went way up this season on his drives, and he was driving the ball more. And Kenny Atkinson and Donovan Mitchell put him in good spots. Evan Mobley needs to play the 4. Like I think that's what he's best. So who are you going to pair him with at the 5?
I think he can play the 5. I think you can run that exact same system where you're playing more spacing. Like I think you embrace a more entire like perimeter centric offense where you have him as the 5, where he's screening to an open lane or can still kick to shooters. Like
yeah, but I just feel like you're limiting him. You're limiting him as a passer and playmaker, where he really made a jump this year if he's the 5. And look, I think defensively he can play the 5 because he can switch. You could switch if he's playing the 5, and he's a good rim protector, even though he's kind of a skinnier dude. I just think offensively he's best at the 4, like kind of like operating as a hub, kind of like a Anthony Davis. Like he can play the 5 short, but he's best when he's playing the 4. So that I look, they can win without Jared Allen. I don't think Jared Allen's a super important piece, but for me, I wouldn't mind taking a patient approach.
Yeah, I get it. I think it's time to take a swing. That I think we've now like I'm a big Donovan Mitchell. I do believe Donovan Mitchell can be the best player on a championship team. I think that is the guy you should be locked in on. And as long as he's willing to continue battling in Cleveland, you continue making that happen. And I do feel bad for the dude who I think has like some of the superstar aura and wants to be a little bit of like the in the limelight type guy. The 2 NBA cities he's played in has been in Utah and in Cleveland there. So kind of,
well, he wanted to be traded to New York. He admitted that. That's where he's from too.
Yeah. So I guess my other point in this would be make sure that you're showing to him that you're taking every steps possible to maximize your chances of winning. I don't know if he's just going to be as bought in on this patient approach as you're kind of selling. And to me, like, it's more important to preserve that type of desire to be there. And if that means taking a swing, I think all conclusions should fall to that.
Yeah, but also this was kind of like I know obviously they've been there for a while. Not a while, but a few years now. This was the first year to me of this core coming together. Number one, because of Kenny Atkinson's system, where they became the best offense in the league. And number 2, because all those guys were locked in. If you remember after last season, there was conversations of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell wanting to break up, and those guys not wanting to play each other. That he's locked into a long-term deal. Donovan Mitchell's locked into a long-term deal. Evan Mobley's locked into a long-term deal. That's their core. So yeah, I would say it's not like a huge swing to trade or risk to trade Jared Allen. Of course, depends what the return is. But in terms of those three in this backcourt, I wouldn't mess with that. I think like really when I say patience, I would keep those two guys in place. But at the same time, if they don't make a move from Jared Allen and they stay with that core four, I also won't have a problem.
I just think you can flip Jared Allen and bring in like a guy, and the drop off's not like you still need another like legit center to go to that optionality. But if it's like Brook Lopez, like you can maybe make a case.
So old though, he's so old. He looked old this year.
He did look old. I've seen his name pop up in buzz far more than I think should probably be the case. I do think his best days are behind him, but even like you get my point of just like a run-of-the-mill type guy that can fill in as a center. I don't think Jared Allen is that head and shoulders above a guy that you can bring into that type of position.
He's also on a pretty manageable contract too. I mean, he still has 3 years left after this season on his deal of around $30 million a year. So Jared Allen's on a pretty manageable contract.
It's a lot though for Jared Allen.
It is, but like it's only like in 28, 29, that'll only be 15% of the cap. So like it's not like, yes, theoretically it is, but I think that's a manageable contract to trade, to your point, if they're going to trade.
Sure.
In terms of getting that salary back. All right, so let's talk about the Warriors though, because I don't think there's much they can do. But the real question is Jonathan Kuminga. Do you have any confidence in the Warriors competing for a title next season or the year after? Because it's really a 2-year window where they have Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler locked up for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't really have confidence that they can, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't try here. I think the clear pathway is like a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade. I think that's really the only move that they have in their pocket that you can get something out of here. It's been crystal clear for quite some time that the Kuminga and Golden State relationship is not working. Stylistically, they're not a match whatsoever. And sometimes that happens, that guys, talented basketball players don't fit on other on teams because it is just not a match for them. And I think that is kind of the case here. And there should be teams in the right situation that should be interested in Jonathan Kuminga. Detroit.
It's really weird. Like, what were these quotes that we're seeing after the season of him, of Steve Kerr? It's like you guys are moving on from each other. You didn't play him in the Rocket series. You weren't playing him points throughout the year. We know the owner loves him, which is the only reason that he might stick around. Joe Lacob was the one who pushed for him in the draft and has pushed for him to play this whole time, which is the only reason he might stick around. But if your coach doesn't trust you, why would you want to stay? Why would they want you? It's kind of weird, all these comments. Like, we know this is an inevitable breakup coming.
Is it the Steve Kerr, we're going to make sure there's not a shot he doesn't like next year quote that's bugging you?
Yeah. Was that like a Legion Hoops tweet?
I believe so.
I actually think because I read that story in The Athletic, I'm pretty sure Legion Hoops got that wrong. And he said that about Podziemski. He was like encouraging, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he was encouraging Brandon Podziemski to shoot the ball and talking about how he didn't have that much confidence throughout the series. And I'm pretty sure Legion Hoops just completely attributed that wrong.
All right, well, we'll wipe that one from the slate then. But yeah, that is how I understood it.
It goes to show you what Legion Hoops is as an account.
but I guess to bring it about Kuminga here, like, I mean, it's got to be a sign and trade situation. They don't really have any other options they can do. I think you know that you have Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, and they already paid Jimmy. We've made that clear. Draymond's still going to be kicking around. I don't think we're going to get a more productive version of him, and the distractions will only increase from here. But that's sort of your core that you're bought into. I don't know how many legitimate NBA players that they have outside of this. Buddy Hield is who he is, and I think is a fine guy that you want to run it back with him. Like, I see the case for it. Podziemski, I like, but I think there's definitely a ceiling on who he is. You got to find a way to get another dude. And as far as like teams, I do think that Kuminga will be an attractive piece. Detroit is a team that popped to mind to me as like could be worth taking a swing with him, although they're pretty starved for shooting in general also. But that's probably the move if I'm Golden State. That's like the one pathway I see to them kind of retooling and having a chance at contending next year.
Yeah, I think you have to see, number one, a leap from Brandon Podziemski. He only shot the ball 30% from three, 33% from the field in this series. And he had some moments during the regular season for sure where I was really impressed with him. But he has to become a better shooter, and you have to see a leap from him. I trust that trio of Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. The thing is they're aging, and you could see a scenario like that happen this year where one of those guys goes down. And if one of those guys goes down, obviously Curry being the most important piece, they're cooked and they're done. So you have to build around the margins. Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade does seem reasonable. Of course, he's a restricted free agent, so that Warriors can match any offer, which would be just cool to do if they did. Like, set him free. Like, he's a little birdie. Like, set him free out of his cage. You literally have him in a cage right now. He's not in the right system. So I think that's the most likely scenario, a sign and trade there. I don't know how much you're going to get back necessarily for that or what that deal would be. The problem is the Warriors do not have a lot of cap space because what they're playing, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Like Gary Payton is just a zero offensively. He's a good defender. Moses
like
Moody, you do? Yeah,
I mean, he
he
is
has
who
to
he
shoot.
is.
He has to be more of a threat from three.
Yeah, he'll shoot them though. Like, and he'll hit a couple. He's not again, like he's very limited ceiling on who he is, but I would keep Gary Payton around.
Yeah, and Moses Moody, same thing. Like a guy that you can't really trust offensively. So with Jimmy Butler, and that's why it didn't work with Jonathan Kuminga, because in the end, when you get Jimmy Butler, you can't have Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green on the floor together, because that's three non-shooters. And yes, you have the best shooter in the world in Steph Curry, best shooter of all time. That's still non-shooters three non-shooters surrounding him. So you need more shooting around Steph Curry, and that's why it made sense. Kuminga was benched in, because he's kind of just a replica and a worse version of Jimmy Butler, especially as a playmaker in a lot of ways. So I got it. Like, it made sense. But obviously Kuminga is going to be gone. You have to build around the margins and just surround them with shooting. The West is going to be insanely competitive next year, like it is this year, like it was last year. Like, you really don't know who's going to merge year in and year out. The Thunder will still be around. Of course, the Nuggets with Jokic. The Mavs could be surprisingly competitive again next year. Let's see what the Rockets do if they somehow get Giannis, or another team in the West gets Giannis. So it's hard to imagine. They're a good team. Like, they were 23-7 with Jimmy Butler. Like, that's good. They're a top 4. They were a top 3 team in the West, completely healthy with Jimmy Butler this season. But with how good the West is and is going to get even better this offseason, it's hard to see them really competing over the next 2 seasons with aging stars as the West gets younger.
Yeah, I do agree, but I think the only other like direction you could possibly look is it time to end the Steph Curry era? And I don't think that should be the case here. Like,
yeah, you can't.
Yeah,
that guy, he ends the era when he wants to end that era.
Agreed. That's kind of where I land on that. So if Curry is still fully invested and wanting to run it back and compete, you keep trying to take swings at this. And if you do have Steph Curry, you do still have a chance. Like, he hasn't really shown these signs of decline that you should be worrying about at this point in the game. So I do mostly agree. I think the window to win is probably over. I think the West is just too competitive at this stage in this game. But when you have Steph Curry and when you have Jimmy Butler, it is worth at least trying to give yourself a chance here. So I think that's the unfortunate direction. I don't think there's really a pathway to climbing where you could be remotely viewed as favorites or in the same mix as these, the Thunder, the Nuggets, all these teams that we're mentioning. And let's not even forget teams like the Spurs are absolutely going to take a leap forward next year. There's going to be a lot of talent in this Western Conference, but you got to try if you're Golden State is sort of where I land there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really their only option, because now they've committed the next 2 years to this older group, and they're hoping Curry, Butler, and Draymond Green are going to compete for titles over the next 2 seasons. And after that, they're going to be even older after those 2 years, and they're going to be free from some contracts, but they're probably not going to have a lot of young help. So it's going to be some rough times in Golden State in that post-Curry, post-Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr will be gone when Curry's gone, era in Golden State. We'll see what happens with that. Do we want to talk some drafts, some lottery, some Ace Bailey potentially?
I got a quick couple minutes before we wrap up here. So yeah, hit me with it. Where's your head at here?
All right, so we'll be all back on Monday previewing the series, the Western Conference Finals and Eastern Conference Finals. We'll be set. We'll be previewing those on Monday, and we'll be going deeper into the draft and the Sixers. This Ace Bailey thing is getting a little ridiculous.
It certainly is.
Both ways.
I don't think I've ever seen a prospect this polarizing, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's getting weird. Maybe we're too online, and we probably are too online. And of course, our buddy Mark Henry Jr., I'm seeing a lot more because of how passionate he feels as a pro Ace Bailey guy. But it's this guy is a volatile prospect. I mean, I'm seeing swings like this guy is literally going to be the next Kevin Durant, and swings like this guy is going to be the next, I don't even know, the worst player, biggest bust since whoever you want to name. So I'm seeing complete both ways in the different directions. So, reasonably, it's going to end up somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's where I land, but I'm definitely more towards I wouldn't take him for the Sixers. So real quick, just to wrap up, I know you're an Ace Bailey guy. I know you want the Sixers to take him. Give me your pitch.
So obviously the concerns are fair here. Like, he definitely needs to work on his shot selection. He definitely needs to put on weight. His first step isn't quite where you want it to be. And like, I think to give a little bit of defense of him, I still think people undersell how bad that Rutgers team was and what a poor system that he played in, the lack of coaching, all these things. And the thing that I want to point out, like, I was an Ace Bailey skeptic at the start of this season, watching him on TV and the highlights and the tape and all that. My opinion of him did change when I went and watched him in person up at Rutgers, because the number one impression that I walked away from that game is this dude really cares. This dude really competes. He plays with a motor that won me over there. And when you have that level of motor, which I saw firsthand, and I think if you actually want to watch the film, you will notice as well the competition level on both ends of the floor. When you have that type of motor with the physical skill set that he has and still the shot making ability that he possesses, that's a guy I'm willing to bet on. And that's how I feel about Ace Bailey here. So I understand the case. I still think there's a world where the Sixers trade down and kind of avoid a bunch of this. I think a lot of this, we view this as a three-player draft, or we're so happy we got the third pick, is in an effort to drive up the market a little bit here. But I just think there's a little bit too much I see with Ace Bailey that is worth betting on at this point in the game. I get the concerns, the legitimate. Nobody's an idiot for being a little bit skeptical of him at 3, but I would take the guy if I'm on the clock right now.
It's a good point what you say about Daryl Morey, because he's been out in the media recently pushing this Ace Bailey stock, and somehow people are falling for it. Like, he really believes what he's saying. He is driving the market up, get people up to 3. And I think we both agree they shouldn't trade that for a win now player. I mean, there's some guys like a Terry Eason, you could say, out there if the Rockets are moving on from him, which I don't know why they would.
The one I would have in mind there, if we're talking like Tari Eason in the 10th pick for the 3 pick, you sign me up for that 10 times out of 10.
Oh yeah, I would definitely do that too, but I don't think.
Sure.
I don't think the Rockets have no reason to do that. They don't need an Ace Bailey type right now on that roster, especially if Giannis is coming through. But I will say, like, a player like that, I would probably also on the younger side. But the thing is, when you get a rookie, you're going to have a manageable contract. And the Sixers are paying a bunch of guys a lot of money, and they do not have a good cap situation. So you'd rather have a manageable contract than trade that pick for a more veteran win-now-ready player. But my whole point is that I think they could trade back to take a win-now player. I think VJ Edgecombe is the guy, but we won't talk about him just yet today. You want a win-now-ready player, and Ace Bailey is a project. And so I've started diving into Ace Bailey. I've started diving into his film, and I wanted to start with the positives. So where'd I go? I went to his 39-point performance against Indiana this season. Let's watch Ace Bailey cook. And I remember kind of watching it live, but I didn't really remember like how great of a shot-making game it was. I came away with a negative impression. I'm not going to lie.
Really? Of 39-point performance?
And the reason why is because he made some absurdly difficult shots. You don't shoot those shots in the NBA. You just don't. I don't like, maybe if you're Kevin Durant, but even Kevin Durant now, with the way the game is played and the mid-range and the tough twos are mostly eliminated from the game, you don't shoot those shots that he was shooting. And yeah, he was making them. And then I also watched the next game against who was it? He had 9 points in the next game. I forget who they played now. But I watched that game, and it was the same thing. It's like he's shooting these same shots. It's just a question if he's making them or not. Making them or missing them, those aren't high-quality shots. And I don't care. I'll give you the advanced numbers about his true shooting percentage was for 53%, which isn't great. Like, I don't even care about that. I'm using my eye test, and what it's telling me is these are awful shots. Like, you don't get those shots in the NBA. You don't shoot those shots. Even if you make them at somewhat of a high clip, those long contested mid-range twos are just not shots that you shoot in the NBA. He was only 16%. He's a fine three-point shooter, nothing special, 34% from 3 on the year, but only 16% on open catch and shoot threes this year, which was a little surprising when I saw that number on Synergy. So it's just, these were awful shots. Like, his shot selection, which also means his decision-making, is just dumb. And that's also proof in his turnover assist percentage or ratio, because he had more turnovers than assists this year. He's not a good passer. No. Like, it's just his decision making and his shot quality is so bad. He's a project, and the Sixers shouldn't want a project right now.
And guess what, Sam? He's not going to shoot those shots to the NBA. You're not shooting those shots when you're sharing the floor.
But those are his shots. Do you have any idea like how difficult it is to go from that's your shot type throughout your entire career, and then you're going into a system where like you can't shoot those shots? Go shoot these shots.
There was one other player on that Rutgers team that shot above 30% from 3. There was no other players that had above 50% effective field goal percentage. And as far as the assist to turnover conversation, other players have to make shots for an assist to count here. I think we kind of forget about that. I do think we do a disservice for it. There was no sort of offense run on that Rutgers team. This guy also spent 4 years at public school. He was not a prep school guy. I don't think he's ever been properly coached or taught basketball to the level that his talent commands. You get him under Nick Nurse with the defined role of you are just going to do these specific things, hit spot up 3-pointers, be a guy that defends, which I do think he's a high-level defender. That's your role to start, and then we can add to that. That's a player that I can believe in. So, yes, he's a project to start, but I don't think the floor version of who he is right now is like a 0 to what he brings to the Sixers team.
Well, that's why I text you too. And I don't know the grassroots scene in Georgia, necessarily, but I actually think that it can be a good thing if you've been coached by some great public schools. Like guys who go to really good public schools with really good coaches is sometimes better than going to preparatory and private schools. And then that's also a negative against drafting him, in my opinion, because you don't want a guy who needs to be coached and developed and who's essentially a project. What you're saying by someone who hasn't got good coaching and needs to be coached is he's a project. You don't want a project right now of the Sixers. Yeah, the Sixers do have to thread this needle between they need a win now ready guy because they are on two timelines. Like it's funny that Warriors always talk about their two timeline approach, and they were actually winning championships when they discussed that. The Sixers are on a two timeline approach right now, where they are in win now ready mode, but they also have a couple cornerstone pieces with Maxey and McCain for the future, where you need to thread the needle, but finding a win now ready guy, but also a guy who can help you beyond the Joel Embiid area, and you can pair with a Maxey and with a McCain. And sure, theoretically, Ace Bailey is that guy because of his star potential, because of how high his ceiling is. In terms of win now ready guy, Ace Bailey is not that guy because he's a project. Those are shots that you can say it's the roster, whatever. You shoot those shots because you're conditioned to shoot those shots. And he is a difficult shot maker. Like he can make difficult shots more than most guys coming out of college and more than most guys a lot in the NBA. His efficiency, his inconsistency from night in to night out, and his shot selection where it's like you have to eliminate that shot profile from your game. And it's going to be a really hard adjustment for him to do that. And it's just like, do you want a Jalen Green on your team? Like Jalen Green is a really talented player. I get the talent with Jalen Green. I get the talent with Ace Bailey. Jalen Green goes through 2-month stretches where he's looks like a top 20 player in the league. And then he goes through 2-month stretches where this guy is one of the worst efficiency and worst true shooting percentage and effective field goal percentage in the entire NBA, where he looks like he shouldn't even be on the court. So that's what you're getting, in my opinion, with an Ace Bailey. And I get the defense. I get when I watch his drives, he honestly looks like Harden, and I'm impressed by. He doesn't get to the free throw line that much, but I'm impressed by his ability to create contact on his drives, and he has his elbows out, kind of Harden-esque. And he's a pretty good finisher. But the handle isn't that great. As a passer, he's not that great. And just the shot selection, he could be a really good player. He's a project, and the Sixers should not want a project right now.
I think the floor of him is still a starting point, and I think the context of this is all important to note. So I gotta hop over and write some my DraftKings job from now. So I'll have some nice prop bets coming out for the Celtics versus Knicks today, some prediction stuff on that. So make sure we tapping in for that. But we are gonna have to bookmark and revisit some Ace Bailey.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing Ace Bailey stuff the next month. Sean Barnard, Sam Oshtry, picks and send me those props because I'll ride them tonight. I'm sure they'll be all Celtics-esque. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will talk to you on Monday.